I believe many catalysts are actually driven by that change that they want to bring in the society rather than the positions they wanted to occupy. Of course, they might take those positions when they see that they can bring that change by using that as a vehicle rather than being driven by it.
Hi, I'm Shannon Lucas.
And I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And we're the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to catalyzing innate change makers to accelerate positive change. This is our podcast,
Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out,
where we highlight catalysts that are creating amazing change in the world. In this season of the podcast, we're doing a deep dive into the skills that make catalysts successful. I am so thrilled. I can't even tell you how thrilled I am today to have Krishna here with us. Krishna Manda is the VP of Corporate Sustainability and member of the leadership team at the Lenzing Group, an Austria-based international company with €2.5 billion revenue and 8,000 team members. Lenzing is a leader of sustainable cellulosic fibers, which with brand names such as Tencel and VioCell, used for textiles and hygiene products. Krishna has helped them to be one of the world's top companies with impressive ESG ratings and premium sustainable products with concrete positive impacts. Lenzing is one of 12 companies globally, next to LVMH, a luxury fashion brand, to achieve CDP, Carbon Disclosure Project, rating of AAA for climate, forest, and water disclosure and integration in business. No small feat. Krishna also serves on the board of directors for the Sustainable Apparel Coalition, SAC. SAC's members consist of brands, manufacturers, NGOs, and service providers, and together they represent over $800 billion in revenues of the textile sector globally. Also, I have to add that Krishna did not put this in his bio when he submitted it to us because he is genuinely one of the most humble servant leaders we've ever met. He has PhD in corporate sustainability focused on application of life cycle assessment for corporate sustainability, integrating environmental sustainability into business for value creation from Utrecht University. There's no one probably more qualified for us to talk about sustainability and being a catalyst. It's so good to have you here, Krishna.
Thanks for having me. At the same time, you made me feel humble with that intro.
And case in point, there we go, audience. All right, Krishna, we'd love to hear your story and tell us how you relate to the concept of catalyst.
Actually, I just like to touch upon where I come from and my story so that you can see the elements of catalysts and their attributes in a way. So I have been living in Mumbai for 3 years for my master's degree in IIT Bombay. During that time, I have actually kind of witnessed so many things. For example, there is fast development in Mumbai, right, in any developing country. So there is a lot of encroachment of the ecosystem by humanity. At the same time, you will see that very rich and very poor people are also in the same area. Like somebody is living in a multi-story building with 5-star hotel services, and the other one is a slum next to it. And we have seen all those things, right? So this kind of context made me think about what kind of profession would give me happiness and satisfaction in life. So that's where I hit the self-discovery button. And it was really tough because I don't know what profession that would be. So I was just really going through, like, by spending time on NGOs like that are actually investing in education of slum dwellers, and also some NGOs working on environmental topics like, and then, so I was actually very luckily, the serendipitously, I have seen an article by Jeffrey Sachs from Columbia University on sustainable development, and then it clicked like that. So I was thinking, like, I should be doing this course and program, but this journey actually took around 8 months or 1 year. So I have been talking to so many people in international development, alternative development, and international management, many fields, humanities. But I was lucky that I found it, right? But what triggered me is creating accelerated change to improve the state of the world, right? So, and many friends, it's actually 20 years ago we are talking about. So many of my friends are engineers in Mercedes or General Electric and those big companies. So they have settled down after a few years, right? They didn't understand what I was doing actually. So what I wanted to say is that catalysts are actually driven by an impact they want to create. They have a vision, and that vision is not easily seen by many people. They don't understand what they are going after, right? So, and also they choose these big problems that the society is grappling with, or maybe in case of organizations that many people are also like looking at problems and solutions that others can't see, but that may create enormous value for the organization in 3 to 5 years or that kind of time frame. But usually, you guys worked on big corporations. We give a lot of importance to the medium term or short term because that's what we need from the investor's point of view. So it's really difficult for these people to actually go after a vision and bring people along and those kind of things. So I believe capitalists are also driven by this impact rather than the position they want to get. For example, when I was deciding 20 years ago, I really don't know what type of career I will have in the future. So there was no VP, Chief Sustainability Officer positions existed in 20 years ago. So I believe many catalysts are actually driven by that change that they want to bring in the society rather than the positions they wanted to occupy. Of course, they might take those positions when they see that they can bring that change by using that as a vehicle rather than being driven by it completely. So yeah, so big visions, big problems, and a lot of challenges to bring them. So all those things are actually characteristics of, for me, the catalyst usually.
You nailed it. And I'm curious, how did your family respond when you started pursuing that?
That's a really important question. So I told my father that I would like to go in this area, like around 2 years ago, and he was like, first, take care of yourself. So I got a job as a management consultant, and he wants me to take that job. And I could have settled in either New York, Amsterdam, or Mumbai, or maybe between them. So he was telling me, if you wanted to do these kind of things, do it on the weekend as a hobby. So I think I understand him. We are from a middle class. There is no social security for us. So, and he was really concerned and worried about me, and he wants me to do well. So, right, that's what my father thought. But I thought, he's not encouraging me. I will not tell him. So I didn't tell him. So I started looking for programs in US and Europe because there were no programs on sustainability in India 20 years ago. So then I got a scholarship. Then I had to make a business case for my dad. So if I earn a salary, it may be more or less same as this scholarship because it's a really, really generous scholarship. It's called Erasmus Manda Scholarship in Europe. And my father had to accept because of the business case.
Amazing.
So I had some backup plans and those kind of things. So yeah, it was not easy, but I had to convince him something.
And you started modeling the skill as a catalyst for what it takes to bring people along. Like, what is his value, right? And how do I speak to his value to get him to see the importance of this vision? Do you have advice for other catalysts who might be struggling with their family's probably lack of support if they don't understand what that vision is?
I mean, so if you ask me to give an advice to my 20 years younger self, I think I want to just think like that. I was actually not so, what do you call, maybe gracious with my father. I was actually, you don't understand me. And so I was so emotional, right? So if I were, I need to be in that position again, I would quietly listen to him and understand his real worries behind it, and maybe dig a little bit deeper to understand where he's coming from rather than just saying that you don't understand me and all those kind of things. So I would have taken a step back. And also with a lot of experience and maturity, also we learn how change actually comes in real world, right? So when we wanted to convince people, the best approach is to actually listen and understand them rather than putting your arguments, because you need to first of all understand what is really bothering them, right? Then if you have that answer, you will just tell them gently, because already by listening to them, they have actually released themselves and got normal. And then you can maybe if they're reasonable enough, you can have that conversation. Because you cannot actually assume that people will be reasonable all the time, because we are all carried away by our passions and emotions and those kind of things. So I would like to.
Such great advice, Krishna, totally. And it's just like in that story, maybe it took you years to understand the compassion and concern that your father was coming with,
Absolutely.
not the I know better than you. I mean, that might be part of it, but like it was coming from a deeply compassionate place. Well, I'm curious. So how does this tie into, if at all, the skills that have made you successful as a catalyst? What are one or two of the skills that you'd pick?
So since catalysts have big vision, at the same time, they have some kind of intuitive navigation system which is real-time based, but that's happening here, right? Not anybody next to you within your team or collaborators can see it, right? So from that point of view, I believe they move so fast, so they lose the people around. So one of my bosses used to tell me like 7-10 years ago that, Krishna, could you please just slow down and explain your thought process to me, what's happening now, and why you chose to have this conversation with them in this sense that we didn't align that way, right? So I also realized more and more often that I am moving at a lightning fast pace sometimes, not always, sometimes. And that means you are kind of leaving people behind. But no change can be created by one person. It's a co-creation and collaboration effort. Right? So I started to reflect more and more often that how do I understand where the people are in their understanding? How do I bring them along with me? What do I need to do to help them? Right. So I think the most important skill for bringing alignment, collaboration, because that's what needed to bring any change in the world. So those come with orchestration, either you call orchestration of change or taking people along. That is one important skill, I believe. At the same time, when you are trying to bring people along, your focus may be just the goal you want to achieve, right? And you might again still lose them because you are not genuinely trying to understand and connect to them and their concerns and worries. So the other piece of this puzzle is the second one as a skill, if you want, if you may say is how do you put empathy and well-being as center piece of your own approach and how you show up in the world. I think these are the two things I believe. I mean, the catalysts need to cultivate it because they are passionate. So sometimes passion can also be an obstacle, right? So how do you actually create that space and so those kind of things. So I would suggest, I would say that these are the skills I am thinking that I'm building in myself for a long time, which you guys have also helped me to make it very conscious of that, right? And the second is, despite these skills also, you need to realize that it is a work in progress. I would say every catalyst is a work in progress. The reason is you try to take challenges which are very new to you. Most of the stuff you are doing first time in your life, right? That means there is this imposter syndrome, whatever you call, will creep in always, right? But if you accept yourself as I'm a work in progress anyway, the challenges I choose and pick are really different and disparate. So I have to anyway step up my game and continuously learn. So as a leader, anyway, a leader should continuously learn and keep the open and curious mind, right? So that work in progress piece also helps me to just calm down, step back. When you are more relaxed, you actually do whatever you need to do actually for that circumstance. So this is the kind of mindset I'm trying to cultivate. So I accept myself as a work in progress, keep learning.
And it's so freeing. Like, I just feel it's like, it's so freeing to have that framing. I have a couple follow-up questions. The first one is, what does it look like to you to sort of embody that empathy and well-being as a leader? If we were to follow you around for a day or a week, what would we notice?
Maybe I also wanted to go into how do I bring people along, because I'm thinking maybe to help the audience to contribute from my side as well, and then wanted to bring this piece. Is that okay for you?
Of course, please. Yeah.
So because that well-being piece is integral to that, right? So it's not
Great.
separate.
Great.
So I have a simplified framework for myself to just remember easily that the first and foremost is just to be to give the idea. So there are three elements to bring people along, just to make it simplify. One is coherence, and the second is co-creation. The third is co-elevation, right? So what do I mean by coherence? So coherence means you need to find what are the mutual interests of the group or the people you are working with towards the goal you wanted to accomplish or achieve, right? So you are talking to R&D, or you're talking to procurement, you want to change something. You need to understand what are their concerns, their challenges, their priorities, and also the person's motivation and their values, right? And how do I tie in what I am asking to the overall goals of the organization? Because they also wanted to contribute to the overall goals of the organization, business value creation, though. So you need to find that coherence with these people who you are kind of catalyzing with. And the second is co-creation, because even if you bring them, you align and you bring them on the board, and usually what happens is that you and your team are the experts on sustainability, but you cannot imagine that a procurement team is experts in sustainability. So they don't know really, they understood what you are asking them, they are willing to do it, but they don't know how to do it. So you also need to kind of handhold them and take them along with you again by really doing the concrete work with them. And the other piece is that I really don't understand how the procurement process works. So I need to be vulnerable and tell them, I can tell you what needs to be included, but I don't know where it needs to be included. So you need to help me on that other piece. So we sit with them, understand their business process, and how do they do it, where are the different options, and then we can actually integrate into that. That is actually the co-creation part, which from both parties. And the third one would be the co-elevation, because you know what, everybody wants to be appreciated, right? The deepest needs are approval and safety and those kind of things. So if you can really give them visibility and credit at the organizational level, they also kind of feel safe and secure, so that they have the permission to do these kind of things in the future as well, right? So I am very generous in terms of giving credit to people, and I also have a mindset of if you imagine recognition is a pie, that pie is growing every day. So I will have my share. There is no scarcity, a lot of abundance there. So of course, sometimes somebody gets more recognition than you, but as long as your team gets recognition, they are okay. But maybe somebody gets 90% and you are only mentioned once, right? That's okay, as long as they do it. So I try to use this framework of coherence, co-creation, and the other thing is co-elevation. And then I wanted to tie in, when you ask me co-elevation, so it should not also look very superficial and you started to kind of praise everybody, then you are not authentic. People say, he actually does that to every person. It doesn't actually authentic you. So how you show up in every day is very important. That's where I wanted to say that how I conduct myself on a day-to-day business, that should reflect in these kind of things, coming with values like I am grateful person, so gratitude and empathy, connection, courage, and authenticity, and learning, and those kind of things are my values. So for example, when I'm interacting with people, I usually for example, I check in so often with people, right? So in the check-in, work is there, but I also talk to them as a person, right? Hey, how are you? How is your weekend? Did you do something interesting? How are your kids doing? So I think you connect the people at the very authentic level. So that connection is really important for me, which is actually resonating me as well, because I feel also grateful for all these people around me. So I can talk more about how I do it, like, because I have been doing it in every interaction I do, whether it's one-on-one meetings, whether it's actually my team meetings, so how do I bring mindfulness on those? I have some more examples, but I would like to just take a pause here and see if you have any questions meanwhile.
I do have one question, and if you could give a short example, like one or two short examples of how you're embodying that with your team, that'd be great.
And the well-being and empathy piece?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we have weekly team meetings, and in the first 10-15 minutes, we talk about good news. Usually what we do in the good news is what we have accomplished in the last week, and I really appreciate the people who have been doing the work. Some of the work have been done for the last 2 years, 3 years to get there, right? So you need to acknowledge them. They have been going through tremendous challenge. This is a real difficult area, and things don't move so fast sometimes. And the second thing is that we also have a piece on health and safety. So we do talk about very explicitly, like how is your physical health, emotional health, and mental health, and those kind of things. And do they feel safe and secure to express whatever they want to say? The psychological safety is very important to me. But not only these things, we also do a 2 minutes of mindfulness exercise. So just deep breathing 5 times or something like that. So if you do it every day, every meeting, and I do that in the team meetings, then I conduct 250 people every bi-monthly meeting as well. Like we have a commercial team, we train them because they are actually face of the organization to the customer, right? So we do have a well-being moment on these bi-monthly calls. So I was really hesitant and vulnerable. Should I try in this business context? Maybe a 10 people team of mine is maybe safe and secure, and I'm still leading, so nobody would not say it's not right and wrong. But anyway, I asked people, would you like to do it? And people always say, yes, we want to do it, right? But in these 250 people, so I was thinking, and what would my colleagues in the commercial team will think about, but I said, anyway, let me try it. So I started around 2 years ago. And what I do is first again, breathing or mindfulness for 1-2 minutes. And the second is I do a well-being moment where I talk about what is the importance of taking a pause, or importance of sleep, and taking walks and those kind of things. And the other thing I also do is that I have a leaderboard where I try to bring people who are actually contributing on certain topics in the last few years. So I have, like, it's very important that you don't praise everybody. If people are doing at least for last 2 years consistently, then you bring them on board. So there is an incentive for them to be on that board. So I usually pick 1 or 2 people every bi-monthly call and talk about them, what is their contribution to the company. So I think these are the 3 elements I do at this 250 people level. And you wouldn't believe how many people actually wrote to me and told me that, I really love your well-being moments in the first 10 minutes. And there was a Chinese colleague who came, I don't see them so often, but he just came. I didn't even know him by face. And he said, hey, I know you. You do the mindfulness exercises on the bi-monthly call. I really like those. I was like, really? So it was like, it's really interesting, but people really craving for it, right? They want to have, those kind of moments in their day-to-day life.
It's so interesting as someone who also, did that in the corporate world, and you're usually, still the odd person out who's doing that, and the courage that it takes to hold that space. But the feedback that you get from the most unlikely of people sometimes, right? And so there is this beautiful feedback system. It's like, look, do it how you want to do it. I'm not forcing you to do anything. We're just sitting here breathing. We're talking about, things that make us more cool people. I love it, Krishna. And I'm going to go long on this part because there's one more question I really want to ask you, which is, it's so connected to me. I have a deep personal belief that in order for sustainability professionals to really achieve the impact that they want to have, they have to have their own personal sustainability, because there's this tension constantly in the work that you do of the urgent. We're too slow. We know that we're too slow, and that can be super demoralizing. And so we also need to have the hope. I'm just wondering if you can speak briefly to how you manage that, or advice that you have for other people.
So I would like to be very honest and also vulnerable here, because I'm still a megalomaniac, so I wanted to create a big impact and change. but I don't want to associate I'm the hero here. No, not at all. I'm just a conduit for it. So that realization came after 10 years working in the field. It didn't come before. So I'm taking myself more easily, like, so I'm not so serious. So now, in terms of like, there is a genuine intention of yours to progress, make the progress, but you also need to understand there should be a marketplace, there should be a supportive ecosystem. If you don't have these two, you will fail. That is part of the equation, and accept it and try to either you choose them or you create them and have the patience and empathy towards you. I think I should give credit to both of you because your book actually helped me to realize it as well. And sometimes you need validation and those people like, so when Tracy has done these interviews and so much research to understand all the catalysts, it comes out it's a pattern that all of these people are actually struggling, but by not knowing to give that space to themselves, right? That spaciousness. And at the end of the day, the spaciousness is very important to bring the best version of yourself, right? So I'm really interested in doing that. So what I do is like I'm aware that my role is to create this big impact, but don't take yourself too seriously. Have fun while, and you
Good
know what?
advice.
Even if you don't achieve anything, but fun part is still there in the life, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
you're not wasting your life. So, but I can also connect with my big P and small P, the purpose, right? The
Yeah.
big purpose I have is I would like to at least help 2 or 3 companies change in my lifetime, and at least 1 to 2 sectors to be changing their way of business models and work. So it's actually huge, I know. But I also have a small P that I wanted to alleviate suffering and help people around me to succeed in whatever they are doing by understanding, giving them space, but at the same time, coach, mentor, and those kind of things. So if I don't have the big one, sometimes I feel like it's so far away, but the small one is just next
Yes.
to me. I can always
Yes.
have it. Yeah.
Yes. Some of the best advice I've gotten from my mom for the big crux moments was remember to have fun. I mean, it is such a good reframe. And I'm going to hand it over to Tracy, but I just want to say to the audience, I think people understand now why I was so excited to get to talk with you. It makes me teary, Krishna, because you just embody such beauty around change in the world. So thank you.
You are very kind to me. Thank you.
I love that you champion sustainability for the globe, for the planet, but also for the humans individually and our day-to-day life. It is, to Shannon's point, not something that you always see when someone's out there working on a cause that's so urgent. So thank you for reminding us that it is not just a nice to have, but it is absolutely essential to stop and pause and connect with yourself, but connect with the people around you. So thank you. And you say it in a way that makes me feel calm. So deeply appreciated. All right, rapid fire. What is one thing that you do to be ready for a big meeting, Krishna?
So actually, it depends on whether I am conducting the meeting, I'm actually attending the meeting. So those, in both cases, what I do is like, I try to take 5 deep breaths just before the meeting starts, because this polyvagal theory, the neuroscience related stuff, I just wanted to be in a state of safety, and that means I can be more authentic in my conversations. That's one thing I do commonly, but the other thing is that I set an intention for an outcome, but I hold it lightly. The most important thing is that I need to listen to others' perspective. You need to understand what's the worldview there and their stories, right? And you also need to know that you don't have answers for everything. The best outcomes you can create when you actually kind of capitalize on the creativity of all other people, not just only you. So you need to always give that space. That's why I set an intention, but on the outcome, but I hold it very lightly so that I have openness, curiosity to understand their point of view. And if what is emerging, right, you need to catch that emerging future and then try to actually create outcomes accordingly. So that's what I do, the set intention wholeheartedly. And if I am conducting a meeting, And usually, like I lead at C-suite level committees like ESG committee and those. What I do is persuasion. So I talk to all my stakeholders before because I want to move the needle. That means I start work already 2-3 months in advance by giving them heads up and aligning with them the outcome, the approach, and what are the concerns of the C-suite, how can we get their buy-in. So all those things I do. So usually it starts very early. So I try to do that persuasion.
So just beautiful reminder of all the ways to bring people along. Tactically, what does it look like to have an intention and hold it lightly so that you're deeply listening? Because you're pointing to the fact that there's tension, you're acknowledging it, but like, how do you do that if you don't know how to do that?
I mean, to be honest, the first and foremost thing for me is in any meeting is to be present. And I must say that I'm not yet the master of it. I am actually distracted by many things as well, but I try to bring myself into the present moment. When you are present in the moment and focusing on only one thing, I think you will listen deeply. So if you are not present, you are actually being carried away by the distractions. You will not listen. But at the same time, you also need to cultivate this skill. I still say if you ask me what are the things that you are working on improving, I would say deep listening is a lifelong skill I wanted to acquire and learn more, because we usually hear to answer or respond or something like that, but we don't go into the depth of what do they mean, what is behind what are they not saying for whatever reason. So I think that deep listening is a practice that you need to do continuously and learn that you are not yet there. So the mindfulness and all those things helps you to calm your monkey mind and listen to them rather. So because there are so many thoughts coming and you need to let them go. So very gently, you should not react as well, gently. So you just pay attention, but you focus on again going back to what you are listening to. So I think this is a practice that you need to do regularly.
What I love so much of what you're saying, but I especially love just the reality that it's not like someone's born good at this, or somehow you just are, that you have to be thinking about this as you walk in, and you have to be like, you're like, yeah, I do have the intention and that's present, and I want to be listening, and I have the intention and I want to be listening, and it's a choice every minute that you have to remind yourself of. So thank you for sharing the conflict that's true. It's not just that somehow you're more enlightened than the rest of us, Krishna. You're just practicing it.
We are work in progress. Just stay
right,
easy.
right, exactly. That's what you do. So you've spoken to so many ways that you've learned leadership and to bring people along as a catalyst. What are you experiencing today as your biggest challenge as a catalyst leader?
I mean, actually, there are a couple of challenges. I'm working with the industry colleagues. I talked about the first is actually how do you bring the investments in sustainability in these current times, right? So the market is really not doing well. So you have cost of living crisis, energy prices in Europe are 10 times in the last year, and all those things are leading to people going for cheaper products, which may not be sustainable in some cases because they don't choose the best raw materials or renewable raw materials, recycled raw materials, and those which cost more. And there is no level playing field for these products. So if you look in the context of climate change, actually, and this year we have El Nino effect, that means we will have warm winter and warm autumn. So we have only a window of 7 years to really reduce our global climate change emissions by 50% globally, right? Not only just our sector, globally. Where do we get the investment from? So that's one thing for our company, but also at the sectoral level, I can speak as a board of director for Apparel Coalition, that we also need to see how manufacturers, brands can bring investment in sustainability in this volatile environment, because everybody is worried about whether they can make to the next quarter or not. Nowadays, it feels like that. That's one big challenge I am thinking of and bringing people along. The most important thing in this case I will hold is that no matter how small the step, it should be forward, but no regressing. That's the only thing I'm focusing on. If I'm still in this environment, if I push people too hard, you are actually making their lives really, really difficult. So you need to understand their situation, the commercial and procurement and all those, but still make progress, a small one for this year. Maybe it's okay, but you need to progress, not regress. That is one thing. And the other thing I'm also thinking is that it's a big industry level that most of the business models are archived. So, the investor wants to create high returns and the companies wants to deliver it, right? Whether it's a brand or manufacturer, this is the same situation. And unfortunately, sustainability is not cost neutral. If you wanted to buy renewable electricity, since we don't have enough capacity, you need to pay more. But who will pay for that price, right? And the same with recycled materials, circularity related stuff. Also, there are not enough. Actually, there is only 2% of recycling happening in some sectors, for example, right? So how do you change the business models? I think for me, the European Union is very forward on regulations, and New York is also doing, California is doing. So how do we kind of shape these regulations in such a way that we will get the ecosystem for businesses to transform their business models? That is the second challenge we are working on. And the third would be, for me, all these things cannot be solved by one or two people. It should be solved collectively, right? The collective action. But what does collective action mean? Who needs to bring what? What is the role of a manufacturer, a brand, and those? So at these big coalitions levels, like United Nations Fashion Charter and Sustainable Apparel Coalitions, we are working on these definitions so that we can bring people along, the sector along, so that we can move $100 billion every year to get there, or even more actually, because we need investments in trillions. So these are the kind of pieces that are making me dizzy in terms of challenges.
Again, the perfection of your leadership style, the urgency in the areas that you're working, and yet the calmness that you talk through it. It's the most calm I've ever felt hearing the impending reality of our experience. All
Again,
right.
I learned that if I'm overwhelmed, I cannot bring the change because I will be like troubling them, other people. So I need to be more relaxed. Yeah.
It's a beautiful lesson. All right. With our 1 minute left, who is your favorite famous catalyst, alive or dead, and why?
I have been thinking about many, but I wanted to choose Nelson Mandela. It's really inspiring life he had. He was in jail for incarcerated for 27 years. After 17 years, he has realized that he might spend the rest of his life in the jail. Then he started to ask why the prison guards, who are, I think, the white people there, are hating his people, right? So he wants to understand what is behind the hatred, right? And then after 1 year, he started to love them and realized this one thing, which is very profound for me, that he said, in order to bring change, you need to liberate both the oppressed and the oppressor. You need to liberate the oppressor from the hatred he has. So that is something very important. But I was actually thinking whether it is actually relevant for catalysts. And I was thinking that both the catalyst and the people going through change need to be liberated. The catalyst from excessive identification with the change and the vision they have, and create spaciousness by creating spaciousness. And the people going through change, we need to liberate them from fear, insecurity, by empathy, and those kind of things. So I think this is what I learned.
That's the emotional hearing that. Liberate us from the change that we see, create that distance, and you embody that. All right, a call to action for our audience as we wrap up today, Krishna.
So I believe in like being the change you want to create. So in that sense, if we wanted to have a sustainable world, I would like everybody to think about how they can influence this change. Like they can buy responsibly, so they can look what they are buying. Do they really need it, first of all? And then if they need to really buy something, they need to look for the attributes that reduces impacts on the world, or reduces impacts on society, like labor rights, human rights, but also environmental things. So I would like people to think about it before they do any purchase, which is actually huge power, huge power. So I would encourage people to look for our brands as well when they go into Gap or Levi's or Eileen Fisher and many, many other brands. You look for Tencel, VOCell, we are actually reducing our impacts. I mean, we have a 50% reduction of impact compared to other sectors in some areas. So all are substantiated. So you can look for those companies and promote them so that others also get inspired by those companies. So
Sell and VSL, if you want a sustainable world, do the work to drive to sustainability. You heard it here, folks, starting today. Krishna, it is a joy to get to connect with you today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and experience with us.
Thank you so much for helping the Catalyst by bringing all those competencies to their consciousness. It's a huge service. Thanks that come to both of you.
Thank you back. And thank you so much to our listening audience for listening. If you'd like to learn more about how to accelerate positive change, go to our website at www.catalystconstellations.com.
Be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, that Krishna was referencing. And if you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way.
Thanks again.